Hello, everybody. Hello. We are going to do a live session of debate prep where we are going to look at the topic we should abolish the Electoral College. I'm going to be using ChatGPT to do this. We are only going to be focusing on the affirmative side for this particular debate, not just the affirmative, but the first affirmative constructive. All right, the very first speech in the debate. 5-minute speech. So the way that the speech is organized and the suggestions I'm making for you are based upon that particular time requirement. Okay. So how do you use ChatGPT to generate something for this particular topic? Well, I already got it all set up for you. So let's take a look here. All right, here we go. So if you can't read it, so I'll read it for you in a second. But I want to let you know that I'm coming to realize the sort of art form that comes with the prompts that you put into ChatGPT. Not only that, but we're going to use for, so the reasoning and conciseness is highlighted here, but the prompt, and you can see that the cap is put into place. The prompt here that I'm putting in is to imagine you are the affirmative in a debate on the topic we should abolish Electoral College. Generate a 1AC. That is the first affirmative constructive. Okay, the first affirmative constructive, you don't need to necessarily write it out because it's pretty widely known. You know what? I'm going to go right here. That's even better. I like that. It's known that 1AC means first affirmative constructive, the first speech. So start with definitions. Explain how this is a policy resolution, then define terms in the resolution, then propose a specific plan text with funding and enforcement, and then explain this debate will use criterion of net benefits and what that means. Start with definitions. I'm going to amend to in 4 parts because it doesn't always know. So you say first explain how is it, then propose funding, then explain. All right, there's the 4 parts. It said then have 2 advantages, each organized around the stock issues of harms, inherency, solvency, and impacts. These stock issues are outlined in one of the video lessons. Okay, so let's take a look here. Let me make sure that I'm doing all right. Hold on a second. I'm just doing a little bit of layout work here. Boom. There we go. Okay. Yeah. All right. Now let's see what it generates. So it takes a little bit more time for the ChatGPT 4 to pump it out, right? The others are quicker, but I wanted something that has better reasoning and that, the language capabilities are a lot better. So it starts right off with the resolution. Now, I do recommend that you actually incorporate like an attention getter. You can say something like, I think, is it out of the last like 6 presidential elections, I think 2 of them have gone, or like you just find the figure out of the last number of presidential elections, X number of times the popular vote was overridden by the Electoral College. We are here to talk about, and then you could go into the resolution. See, so I don't necessarily recommend starting off with that. You can even find an interesting, anecdote perhaps if you want to, but then take a look. So this means that it proposes is a policy resolution. This means that it proposes a specific change in the status quo, aiming to create a better alternative to the current system. Absolutely, that is what it is. And so you need to provide a plan text. It goes right into definitions. It's not exactly what I asked for. I asked for that highlighted part to be put into the definitions, but that's okay. So we have definitions where, oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then advantage 1. That's fine. That's fine. So it does 1, 2, 3, 4, and then advantage 1, and it's still pumping out advantage 2. So let's take a look at the definitions a little bit closer. So it does abolish, Electoral College, and policy. See, here's one thing. Policy is not a word in the resolution. So scratch that. Do not have that in there. You have abolish and the Electoral College, but formally put an end to a system or practice. Oh, that's perfect, I think, definition. Yeah, and a group of representatives, the Electoral College is a group of representatives chosen by voters in each state to formally elect the president and vice president. All right, and so the United States will pass a constitutional amendment to abolish the. Thank you, that's good. The president and vice president will be elected using the national popular vote, where each citizen vote carries equal weight. Very good clarification, right? And so I think this is one thing that gets overlooked too easily. Now, on a topic like we should abolish the Electoral College, you do have some room to interpret, but I'm just going to be honest. I don't think those other alternatives really, will bear any fruit. Okay, I don't think that like it's a better interpretation. I think on the abolish the Electoral College, the most strategic thing that you can do is go for the national popular vote and just say popular vote better than Electoral College. All right, just know what you're getting into. So there you go. The way when you are abolishing the Electoral College, now you could technically replace it with something that's not the popular vote, some other sort of like you can replace it with a parliamentary system where the representatives elect, their leader, and it's like a prime minister in England rather than a president of the United States. But it's interesting. Okay, maybe, but like I don't know. I'm just gonna go with this one. This is one I would recommend. This is one ChatGPT generated as well. Okay. Come from the current budget. Okay, so funding for implementation of new system. So I put in funding and enforcement as like you could generate that, but as you can see, there you don't really need any funding to abolish the Electoral College. Okay, yeah, and we have, and so if you're, I really recommend that when you see something like this, you don't need to do that. You could just say funding and enforcement is going to be through normal means. So we have ways to oversee the election. They're able to do a tally of the popular vote. We'll just use that tally rather than the Electoral College. It's FEC is probably the one that's going to be doing it. Okay, and then what does this mean? Criterion. In this debate, we'll use a criterion net benefits, meaning we will assess the overall advantages and disadvantages of the proposed policy change. So whichever side has more advantages. And now take a look. You say, I have two. 1, 2. There you go. Okay. And now what you're doing is basically handing it off to the opposition. It's like, I got 2 advantages. What do you got? Do you have any disadvantages? Do you have any refutation to my advantages? That's what you're doing. Too many people think that they're trying to win the whole debate in the first speech. You don't win it in the first speech. You win it in your last speech. Okay, so you're only using this to set things up. So you're kind of covering all your bases. That's why you have these definitions, and that's why you're taking a lot of time to lay things out. Make sure that you're editing things down. Remember, I'm telling you to get rid of this. So that first one. So let's take this, and how do you edit it down from ChatGPT? So what I would do, I'm going to just copy this whole thing. And I've already kind of prepared a little bit of a spreadsheet. Now, I like taking notes in a spreadsheet rather than in a document because I've highlighted a green column and a red column. So I'm going to put my my whole thing in the green column. I'm actually going to remove that formatting, and so I could put in. There you go. I don't want that bright green though. I like this green better. Okay. So what it does is I'm also going to show you how to do this. So when you put this in here, you can do formatting, wrapping, and then wrap. Now, the reason I'm putting it into a spreadsheet and not a document is because when your opponent starts responding to it, you can put their responses right next to the argument that was made. If you put it into a document, you have to put it all the way at the end, and now it doesn't really line up, and you can't really work on things one at a time. So it's better to have like this grid layout than to have like a top to bottom layout. Now, there are ways of putting columns in documents, but it doesn't work the same way as this, and this is just made for comparing things side by side. So it's like literally a pro con list, right? But you put them side by side. Anyways, it's called flowing in debate. we got some stuff for you to watch on that. Okay, so if when they're putting their responses, you could put it right next to it. Okay, and now when you're going through here, so I'm like, okay, get rid of that one, right? See, you can easily get rid of certain things. And like debates are a little bit more bullet pointed than a regular speech, meaning that you actually say things like subpoint A, the United States federal government will pass a constitution. Like you actually say subpoint A in your speech. And you kind of walk people through subpoint B, subpoint C. You can replace that with things like first, second, third, which is, I think, a great way to be a little bit more conversational while still being highly organized. So it is more organized than what you're used to in a regular speech. All right. It's a lot of numbering of things. And so, like, you're keeping track of arguments. And so that's why, like, all these subpoints are important. Whoops. All right. Boom, boom, boom. Right. So I just showed you how to edit a few things. Now we're going to go down after the criterion. We have advantage one, the strengthening democracy. Okay, let me see if I can increase the font for y'all to read this a little bit. We'll go one at a time. Okay, I might have to actually go like this. Maybe we'll we'll go like that. Okay. All right. So if what you want to do is you want to cut the definitions down to within a minute, about a minute. You could go a little over a minute. All right. You could do like 70, 80 seconds. Okay. But you want to get through it, not much longer than a minute, because you want to give about 2 minutes for each of your advantages. All right. So one would be strengthened democracy. You would talk about, and so the way that this is organized is in the stock issues of harms, inherency, solvency, and then we put an impact at the bottom. In the harms, the Electoral College undermines the principle of one person, one vote. Now, see, that's not a statement about the harms. I think that harms need to be a little bit more just the facts, right? Like what has actually happened that has caused any sort of damage. This is where you would list the number of times where the popular vote did not succeed in electing a president. All right. And so that was George Bush versus Al Gore. These are the recent ones. I think there's one more prior to that. So George Bush versus Al Gore, Clinton, Trump, and I thought there was one more. But that's what you need to do research for. You can see that ChatGPT doesn't fill in that research for you. You have to go out and find that. That's where the harms are. Okay. And then you explain the Electoral College is the reason for it. That's what inherency means. Inherency is the cause of the problems in the most shorthand way I could say it. But what you're saying is the reason why these problems exist and will continue to exist is the inherency. So that's what inherency is the reasons why the problems will persist. Okay. And then solvency is explain why your plan will work. And then the impacts of why is that important? Why is it important that we strengthen democracy? Which seems like, a foregone conclusion, but first off, it is a great exercise in verbalizing fundamental thoughts and concepts, right? You should verbalize them. And if anywhere should you verbalize them, it should be in a debate. Okay. And so verbalizing those things is really good, but also that is what gives weight to your advantage. So what that means is in your criterion of net benefits, you're going to be weighing advantages versus disadvantages. And if you want your advantages to weigh more, then you have to add impacts at the bottom. You have to make it big. You have to make it weighty. You have to make it significant. Okay. All right. And then, so one of them is strengthening democracy. This is the one person, one vote. And then there's another second one about voter participation. Not only will we have, people's votes matter on a one-by-one basis, but we will also have more votes overall. And so it's kind of like a second level of democracy, but of increased voter participation. again, I think ChatGPT is doing a poor job identifying harms. All right, so that's something that I would count on um, you as a student or a debater to to fix, to rectify, either by you can go back and say um, uh, rewrite, oops, with uh, or rewrite with more quantifiable harms. Let's see if that short, brief little instruction results in something better. Because, and I'm going to come back to it, right? Because again, the winner take all nature of the Electoral College, that's inherency. You're explaining why the winner take all. That's what you'd put under inherency, right? But you would have to say that like voter participation is low. That it and it's pretty easy to find the evidence that participation is low in elections, even presidential elections, even recent ones that had relatively good participation levels are still ridiculously low for a right. It's like not everyone is a registered voter, and out of the registered voter is like there is a significant number of people that don't vote, um, and so that should be considered a deficiency in our democracy, and this will help increase that because a popular vote would incentivize citizens to vote. I mean, think about all the people like in a red state or like a solidly red state or a solidly blue state. They're just like, what's the point? I know, I think that my vote overall would be on the side of the majority, but in my state it won't. So I'm not even going to bother. Right? So like a Republican in California or a Democrat in Texas, right, would come to similar conclusions, and so it kind of depresses the um, voter turnout overall. Overall, okay. So let's take a look at what ChatGPT. Oh no, oh no! I thought I was being so smart by stalling for a little bit, but here we go. Um, okay. So again, it starts off with the resolution. We should abolish the Electoral College, and it explains that this is a resolution of policy. I really like how they use that first. So I consider these subpoints, right? I would say that uh, you start off with the Electoral College, or you could even talk about the history of the Electoral College. That's a good one. It's like when you give a little sort of anecdote about when the Electoral College was written and why. That tends to be a good thing when you want to talk about something that is outdated. Then starting off by dating it becomes a really integral part to the overall story, right? And so you say that when the Electoral College was written, very few people were even allowed to vote in that society. Um, and now that we have universal suffrage, uh, we should change the way that the president is elected. Um, Thank you all very much today. The resolution before us is that we should abolish the Electoral College. See, like that's a nice. Oh no, it did it again. Let's see if we were able to get anything though before it crapped out. Oh, it only got down to um the first advantage, strengthening freedoms. Oh, darn it. Well, we might be stuck right here, everybody, and so it might be something where we want to um, copy that, and then sometimes I refresh the page, and then upon refreshing it, it will it'll work when you try again. Okay. Formally input a system of practice, group of representatives. We've gone over that. Now, for this topic and this topic only, abolishing the Electoral College, sometimes there's really like strengthening democracy and voter participation. Both of those are kind of like, both of those are strengthening democracy. So there is an alternative way for you uh, to organize this, and that would be where after you do the definitions up to net benefits, you say, okay, I'm going to explain why abolishing the Electoral College and replacing it with a popular vote will strengthen democracy. First, the harms. You say, there are two of them. The Electoral College undermines the one person, one vote principle, and it depresses voter turnout. So how does it violate one person, one vote? You see what I'm saying? Like you can put both of those in one, and then you're like, now that I've gone over the two harms, let me talk about the inherency. The inherency is the Electoral College itself, and then you explain the Electoral College. That one just has background. It doesn't have two subpoints, right? And then you get to solvency, and you're like, so how does abolishing the Electoral College solve for the one person, one vote principle and for voter participation? Well, first, and then you go into how it will ensure each person votes carries an equal weight. And then secondly, how that people in that people who are in states that are significantly skewed one way or the other will now find motivation to go out and vote. And we should see an increase in voter participation. See what I'm saying? It's like you don't need to go necessarily advantage one, A, B, C, D, advantage two, A, B, C, D. You could just go advantage, strengthening democracy, harms, inherency, solvency, impacts. Thank you very much. And that could be the end of it as well. Please. Oh, here we go. Here we go. It's still going. And at least we have one of these, the first ones. Now, I asked for a quantifiable harms, right? 5 instances in history, including, so yeah, it crapped out on us, but still we got some of it, right? This is a little bit more what I'm looking for, that you want something a little bit more quantifiable, strengthening democracy. So I copied that. I'm going to come over to, boom, here. Remember, you got to format it to wrap so you could read it. Yeah, see, that's, I asked for quantifiable evidence, and it did the exact thing I told it to do, right? I look what I'm doing, Hannah. Hannah, what I'm doing is I am taking that as the first draft, right? And I'm thinking about different ways to do it. So, and I'm getting a second level and a third level. So all of your prompts, when you talk back and forth, it will result in something different depending on how your conversation is. So that's why you can't just put in the exact same prompt. You have to have a conversation with it. Now, I also pointed out that you could organize it differently. You can do, instead of doing the popular vote, you could look up the parliamentary system, right? And you can have like a prime minister type, a selection process that does that. So it shouldn't be necessarily the same. But on the other hand, anytime I hear a Electoral College debate, abolish the Electoral College debate, it sounds kind of like this. So it was going to sound similar no matter what, because you are required to have to speak on this one, right? And so they're always going to be somewhat similar, depending on it. But you should have this back and forth with it. Like the thing that I have highlighted on the screen right now is something that wasn't in the original result. It's something that I had to do a follow-up prompt for and then do the result. Also, you have to open up another tab and start searching for this stuff. So let's do the Electoral College map. Okay, 270 to win. That seems PBS. Okay, PBS. There we go. And so now, this is the most recent Electoral College. Let's skip that right there. Okay. And let's say you wanted to use this, that there was, there's 306 to 232, but then you have, I don't know if they have the popular vote results there though. You want to, yeah, you'd look for something like that. But anyways, you might cite this in your evidence, but somebody might skip that one, and they might drop down to the Library of Congress. They might do Encyclopedia Britannica, or you would go to databases and find the evidence that you need. The ChatGPT is not a replacement for your research, right? All it does is give you an outline. You still need to go and research things and cite sources. You got to double check that ChatGPT isn't hallucinating, which it does. It makes stuff up sometimes. I have no reason to believe that it's made up anything. When it comes to the Electoral College, everything seems consistent with what I know about the Electoral College debate. But when you start asking it to cite sources, that's when it starts hallucinating. What I mean by hallucinating, it makes things up. It'll spit out the name of an author that doesn't exist, publishing an article in a year that they never published anything. It hallucinates, and the worst time that happens is on the so you still have to do your academic research. That's how it's gonna. That's where changes are going to happen. The organization choices are not absolute. This is just one suggestion. I told you about another one. The plan text is not necessarily a popular vote. You might have some alternatives. Hell, let's see. Let's do that. Let's do. I don't want to regenerate. Let's do this. What are some alternatives to the Electoral College other than the popular vote? Okay. So, national popular vote, interstate compact, an agreement among several states to award their electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote. Okay, that one just says that that one's about faithless electors, and you'll have to look that one up a little bit. I don't know if it really is. I think it's not. It doesn't really eliminate the Electoral College. Ranked choice voting. This one's interesting. You'd have to look that up, where you rank candidates. It's still kind of a popular vote, but maybe like you could come up with some difference. What you say, okay, I want the Republican first, Democrat second, Independent third, Libertarian fourth, right? And what they do is they have a way to calculate who has the most popular and the least popular. And what they do is they eliminate the least popular until there's only one left. That's ranked choice voting. Okay. Proportional allocation. Okay. That doesn't abolish it. Direct under the system, president will be elected by a direct popular vote. That is the popular vote. District plan. Yeah, these are all versions of the Electoral College. So, I think the Electoral College debate, abolish the Electoral College debate, is inherently something that just they all sound alike because it's kind of a specific policy proposal. So it's unavoidable that they're going to sound alike, even if you don't use ChatGPT. That's a very long answer, but I'm happy to go down those tangents. Talk about those things. Now, some of the other topics like felon voting, which I'm going to be doing in 30 minutes. There's some variance in how the affirmatives might sound, because at what point do you reinstitute felon voting rights? There's different points, and students choose different points in their speeches, and that creates variety. But for the Electoral College, not so much, right? So, but it is what it is, and it's only 5 minutes. So put together your speech. See, I'm going through and I'm swapping out the harms, because I don't like the harms. The harms aren't statistical enough for me. You should have a statistic right there that's proven the voter because it exists. I know voter participation stuff exists. And then you find somebody who published a theory that they think that the reason why the turnout is so low is in part due to the Electoral College. Just quote an expert on that one. There's your evidence for that one. And then talk about other countries that don't have the Electoral College. What's their voter turnout like? It's probably higher than the United States. It's not hard to be higher than the United States. You know what I'm saying? It's like all it does is give you ideas and an outline. You still have to do the research, but the research is so much easier now because you literally have an itemized list of things to look up. It's like it just gets you there so much quicker. All right. Okay, everybody. I think that does it for the Electoral College. All right. If you got any questions, I'd love it if you post it up in the comments. I'll be able to get to them whenever I can. Otherwise, in about half an hour, I'm going to be going over reinstituting felon voting rights. So you can join the Debate Sensei channel and check that one out too. All right. All right, everybody. I'm going to be signing off. Okay. See you later.